Good afternoon guys, welcome back to Maverick Baking and welcome to a long awaited recipe video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the best soft and chewy vegan chocolate chip cookies. No animal products, no fancy ingredients, nothing expensive or impossible to find or only available in health food shops. Standard, normal, everyday ingredients to make the best vegan chocolate chip cookies you've had. Let's go. Okay, so this recipe is a little bit different, obviously, because there are no animal products in it, which means that these cookies do not contain any butter, they don't contain any eggs, and they don't contain any chocolate that has milk in it. So you might be thinking, what's even left to enjoy? Well, after much experimentation, both in the baking and the eating of these cookies last week, I am happy to say I think we're finally good. We're Gucci, it's grand. The science of these cookies has really been what I've been experimenting with. It's kind of tricky to replace both the texture and the flavor of butter, but I think we've managed to get it right. So without further ado, let's get baking. You'll need a big ass bowl to start with. To this big ass bowl, we have added some soft light brown sugar and some castor sugar. Now, any American viewers or viewers from elsewhere in the world, castor sugar is essentially slightly finer than granulated sugar, but I think you can probably use granulated in its place. Just make sure you mix it in quite well. As for the soft light brown sugar, this is preferable to the dark brown sugar that you can get, simply because it has a slightly lighter flavor. It's not quite as kind of molasses-y, treacly in taste. The castor sugar or whichever white sugar you use will add most of the sweetness. It will also help give a nice color and slight firmness and crispness to the edges. The brown sugar adds moisture and it adds that kind of familiar, cozy, classic caramelized center of a chocolate chip cookie, that kind of flavor. So I've tried it with just one or the other and I can tell you we definitely need a blend. So this is an even mix of both. We have our sugar, it's time to add our oil. The oils that we use in this recipe are a little bit unconventional, especially in cookie baking. So much like the sugar, we have an even 50-50 blend of rapeseed oil, which I believe elsewhere in the world is available. It's widely available in Britain because it's usually made here. You can also use just a decent quality regular vegetable oil. On the other side, we have extra virgin olive oil. Now, you don't have to buy the most expensive, most high quality, but get a decent quality one. This will seem very strange, I know, and I was very skeptical as I was doing it. I kind of thought, you know, Kelly, what are you doing? Because extra virgin olive oil has a very rich, almost peppery flavor, but once mixed into the cookies, both the texture that this provides and the flavor that this provides almost makes up for the lack of butteriness. Trust me. So we have in our bowl now those 2 sugars and those 2 oils, so I'm just going to give it a nice stir until everything is all combined. It doesn't have to be light and fluffy like creaming butter and sugar, obviously, because we're not creaming butter and sugar, but we just need to get them mixed together, get them familiar, you know? We now have our oil and sugar mixed together. At this point, the mixture almost kind of resembles wet sand. There's not really any way to incorporate a lot of air into the fat and sugar as there is with butter, because the unsaturated fat in the oils essentially just cannot hold particles of air inside it. It just physically can't do it. It doesn't have the structure to do so. Talks about chemistry as if she has a clue what's happening. So basically, yes, once you get to this kind of wet sand stage, it'll look weird and you'll probably think, that doesn't look right, but again, trust me, it does. Normally at this stage, this is when you would add 1 or 2 eggs, or maybe an egg and an egg yolk, and you'd also add your vanilla. Instead of an egg, we're going to use some oat milk and some vanilla instead. So let's get it in. Once we've added the oat milk and the vanilla, we're just going to give it a nice mix again to get it all friendly. So you can see that at this point, it's starting to look a bit more kind of emulsified, starting to look a bit smoother, and a bit more like something that will turn out edible at the end. Okay, so that's kind of nice and mixed together. It's time to add our dry ingredients. We are going to start with a big old heavy load of flour. You can use plain flour with a little 1 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda and half a teaspoon of baking powder, or you can just use self-raising flour if you're like me and you're lazy. Next, you're going to add a little bit of salt. I always like to use the good stuff when I'm adding salt. A little bit of salt should be added to everything you are baking. It won't give it a savory flavor, it will just balance it out beautifully. Finally, the fun part, the chocolate. Now, you can use a kind of standard dark chocolate or a cheaper kind of vegan milk chocolate. You can use whatever dairy-free chocolate you like, really. These are Callebaut chocolate chunks. I think they're about 50% cocoa, so nothing too dark, but nothing too sweet, and they go really, really well with the flavor of these cookies. So let's get these added. So we have all our dry ingredients in. It's time to give it a nice, good mix. You'll know it's ready once it basically looks like a thick, stiff cookie dough, and you'll kind of think, I want to eat that. So it should only take a minute or two to get this mixed together. You don't want to mix it too much because it can make your cookies a bit tough, but at this point you can see we have a gorgeous golden thick cookie dough. It's not too sticky, it's also not too dry. The oil and the oat milk have just helped everything come nicely together. So now that we have our dough ready, let's get it onto the trays and get it into the oven. So here you can see we have our cookies ready for the oven. Now I just roll these into little kind of fat spheres using my hands because the dough is a decent texture to be able to kind of work with it. They hold their shape well. I like to space cookies out when I'm baking them. These ones don't spread too much, but it's usually a good tip to do that when you're baking biscuits or cookies or anything really, to give them enough space to just breathe and swell on their own. So I am going to put these into a hot preheated oven that's at about 170 degrees Celsius there just now. And I'm going to bake these for 9 to 11 minutes. I'll just keep an eye on them. Cookies are variable usually just because of their size. As we are humans, it's hard to get exactly the same size blobs every single time. I think these will take about 10 minutes, but I will check on them and let you know. Let's get them in the oven. I'm hungry. Bye bye, sweet children. I'll see you very soon. Now, cup of tea. So as you can see, the cookies are finished baking. These ones are cooled down a little bit. Batch number 2 over there is just cooling a little bit as well. But as you can see, the cookies have spread out just a little bit. They've got a gorgeous even color. You know, there's no kind of dark brown edges. They're just that lovely golden color throughout. The chocolate chunks sat nicely on top and they still have a nice kind of thickness to them. I am so excited to try these and show them to you guys. So let's get into it. So we have a cookie right here. Let me just give you a close-up of that interior. Look at that. Oh my word. Wow. Using oil instead of a kind of margarine or saturated fat like coconut oil or coconut butter in these cookies is what helps stop them from spreading too much. When you put a normal cookie onto a baking tray and into the oven, the heat of the oven melts the butter and the cookies kind of spread out and flatten. When you use oil, there's no liquid to melt, so there's very little, you know, that this needs to do once it hits the heat. The oil also gives them a nice kind of stable bottom, which means they have kind of a nice firm, slightly crispy butt. But the rest of it is just that insanely delicious, soft, gooey, chewy, cookie dough-like center. Enough chat, let's taste them. I am just in love with these. You have that nice kind of gentle crispness, and the center is just so soft and pillowy and addictive. It's, oh. The flavor from the brown sugar really helps these taste almost exactly like a completely normal cookie. And you will not believe how much great flavor that extra virgin olive oil adds. It adds this kind of buttery, mild savouriness that butter itself adds. You know, a little bit of kind of salty taste in the background. It tastes really kind of full-bodied and rich, which when I tried to make these with coconut oil or with margarine or with stork, I just never really had that flavour. I was able to get the texture, but the flavour was never quite right. Using extra virgin olive oil in cookies, my God, I don't think I'll ever turn back. For these to be completely free of butter and eggs is almost unbelievable. Honestly, I can't recommend enough for you to make these cookies. Whether you're just vegan for this month like myself, whether you're plant-based all the time or whether you just want to cut back on your butter and egg and animal product consumption, or if you just want to experiment, I would seriously recommend giving this recipe a go. It hardly takes any time at all. They take 10 minutes in the oven. You don't need to chill them for hours or days. It's a simple, straight up mix, bake and eat, and it is so worth it. As I said, the recipe will be in full in the description box below, as well as a link to my blog where you can also see it, which will have full measurements, full method, tips, everything. For the rest of Veganuary, I kind of want to fiddle around kind of testing out vegan brownies or vegan cupcakes and just see again how I can play with the science of the ingredients, because I found this really fun, to be honest, and not just because I've spent weeks eating cookies. But if you have any other kind of requests or recommendations for vegan recipes that I should share with you guys, let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you for the next one.